Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Nate from New Compass Collectibles. It's been a while, but we're back looking at auction results. This is the first big auction of 2025. Heritage Signature Comic Book Auction is closing this weekend. The final items are actually closing right now, but today's listings are mostly comic art, and I'll be looking only at the data for the individual comic book sales, and those all finished yesterday, so I have data recapping the auction from this weekend, the first big sales of 2025. So let's get into it. Looking at the auction homepage, you can see current total bids a little over $10 million. But like I said, that includes a lot of comic art. Notably, this biggest sale in the auction was the Amazing Spider-Man 194 original art by L. Milgram. This is the first appearance of the Black Cat. Really cool cover. I actually think this one looks maybe better in black and white than it does, in printing. The cover is mostly black anyway, as printed, and something about this black and white cover is just really cool, especially with the Black Cat being a sort of dark and mysterious character, and wearing black most of the time anyway, with like gray or silver hair. This artwork just really pops in black and white, I think. So that sold for just over $1 million. Not just $1 million, but just over $1 million. So as of right now, 856 items have sold. But like I said, a lot of it is comic art. So 368 of those items were comic art. And I'm focusing just, just on the comic books themselves. So you'll see that in my numbers here. Let's go ahead and look at the slides I have put together. So the summary data that I have is 441 sales. Those are individual comic books. And the total value for those sales was just shy of $5 million. So about half the value of the signature session auction total is comics. The rest was other memorabilia and mostly original artwork. How these values break down, we've got mostly Golden Age, right? So the chart on the left shows the number of sales in the comic in the Golden Age were 306 versus 80 Silver Age sales, 33 Bronze Age sales, and 17 Modern. There were 5 in the Platinum Age as well. This is very typical of the signature auctions because a lot of high value books are in these auctions, and they happen on a quarterly basis. So a lot of the big Golden Age books will get saved for these like marquee auctions each quarter. In terms of average sales, it's actually a little more evenly distributed. A little over $4,000 for the Platinum Age sales and the Golden Age sales. Higher average sales in the Silver and Bronze Age. So 6,600 was the average sale in the Silver Age, and 7,200 was the average sale in the Bronze Age, with Modern being the lowest value sales at $3,480. And again, only 17 sales there in the Modern Age. We'll look at a few of those. So here are the top sales by age in this auction. We're looking at Modern, Bronze, Silver, and Golden Age top 5 sales in each category. We'll start with the Modern books. The way I have this color coded, if it's in gold, that means it's a new record, at least according to what has been recorded in the GPA sales history. Red means that it sold for less than the most recent comparable sale. Comparable sale meaning the same book, the same grade, the most recent sale that can be compared to. The green highlighted sales sold for more than the most recent sale. And I have the recent sales price and the date next to all of these so we can see what the comparable sale that we're comparing to is actually dated from. In the Modern Age, we had a 9.9 Amazing Spider-Man 238. Now, there aren't many of those. That one hasn't sold since 2004. So, of course, it's a new record because it hasn't sold in over 20 years, which is pretty incredible because we've seen a lot of 9.9s over the last year or so. It's been a buzzworthy topic as CGC has graded more 9.9s we've seen in some cases. But the Amazing Spider-Man 238, we really haven't seen a 9.9 at least not recorded in a very long time. So that one sold for $31,200, and it was the top sale in modern age books. We actually had two Amazing Spider-Man 667s. So this is the Delato variant, very rare modern variant, and one that has sold for over $40,000 over in the last couple of years. It's been trending down, but holding its value relatively well compared to other high-value modern books. The 9.8 sold for $28,800. That is a significant drop since the end of last year, where it sold for $35,000. But interestingly, the 9.6 also sold in this auction, and that set a new record for the 9.6 grade, $14,400 compared to a $12,000 sale in 2023. The other two books in the modern age were New Mutants 98, which was also a 9.9, and that was a pretty big drop compared to a year and a half ago. It sold for $24,000 here and had sold for $40,000 previously. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 is always near the top of the list in modern age books, but this one was a 7.5 that sold for a pretty big discount to November of 2024. Just a couple months ago, it sold for $13,000, and in this auction, selling for $10,200. Now we can go and look at those sales in the Heritage auction just to look at the photos of them. Just have it sorted by age, so modern age books, selling sorted by highest price. Here's that 9.9 ASM 238. The Delato 9.8, and here it is in the 9.6. The New Mutants 98 in the 9.9. Now this is an older label, it looks like. I'm not going to zoom in to inspect the book, but I'll just trust that it's a 9.9 for whatever that's worth. There's actually something that didn't make my list because it gets filtered out by, I think, some of my data, like search criteria. But Gobbledygook #1, it says with a letter from Kevin Eastman. So this was a precursor to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and selling here for $13,200 in a 5.5. And then here's that TMNT #1 that I did mention for a $10,200 sale. Now getting back to our next age, so looking at the Bronze Age, Hero for Hire #1. This is interesting because we had a 9.8 sell not that long ago in November of 2024, sold for $48,000. And another one selling here, actually a little bit stronger of a price, $49,200, but pretty much in line, pretty close to that previous sale and holding its value. It had sold for higher in previous sales a couple years ago, but compared to just 2 months ago, selling for the same price. So that's good to see that that's still holding. There are still buyers out there at that number. X-Men 94 and a 9.8, and these are all 9.8 sales. If you look at the Bronze Age books, all 5 of these top sales are 9.8. So X-Men 94 selling for $38,400. Now that's a big drop from $55,200, but that $55,000 sale in November was kind of an outlier. So let's look that one up actually. I have it listed right here. So the 9.8, yes, it sold for $55,000 in November, but previous sales, all throughout 2024 were in the $30,000 range. So anywhere from $27,500 to $34,000. So this sale selling for $38,400 actually is pretty strong compared to every other sale. It's just weaker than that $55,000 sale, but that is a real outlier. I'm not sure why that one went for so much more. Batman 251, that one had a pretty weak sale. We should look that one up too, because selling for $26,000 compared to a previous sale of $39,000, that is a big drop. So let's see if we have more data on that sale and get more numbers that maybe we can compare to see whether it's high or low. Looks like it hasn't sold too frequently. So in 2023, selling for $33,000. 2024, only one sale for close to $40,000, and then a significant drop off here to start 2025. But much higher than it was in 2020. Earlier sales a few years ago. There were two very strong sales over the last couple years, but a big drop, in 2025. I'm by no means an expert grader, but maybe it went for a lower price here in this auction because there were some issues on the book itself, but I don't see anything yet. These edges look pretty clean. I don't really see spine ticks here. So the corners look pretty sharp. So I don't know, nothing really stands out to me as being off with this book, just a low sale. Amazing Spider-Man 129, so a 9.8, and this one has been trending down for a while. $19,800 sale is stronger than recent sales have been. Most recent sale was for $18,000, so good to see that one not dropping further in this particular auction, maybe leveling off a bit. Similar with Amazing Spider-Man 101. That one's been on the decline ever since the Morbius movie was kind of a flop, and the comic book market has been weak ever since then. So a double whammy there. That book's taken a pretty big hit. And last sale was $20,000. This one's selling for $19,200. So pretty similar prices. Not a big change there. Looking at the Silver Age books now, this is an area where we actually see some strength in the market. So the modern books were mostly weaker. The only records we had in Modern Age were books that just hadn't sold in a while, except for that Delato 9.6 was like the one strong sale, I'd say, out of these top 5. The Bronze Age books was kind of a mixed bag, mostly flat, I would say. A couple weak sales that may have just been due to outlier comparisons, but a mixed bag in Bronze Age. The Silver Age books actually seem mostly pretty strong. 3 of the 5 sales sold for higher than recent comparisons, and the Action Comics 252 actually set a new record. It hadn't sold since 2016, so it makes sense to see a new record there. It's unusual to see that book in such a high grade. The one weaker sale was a Signature Series book, so this is Fantastic Four number 48, signed by Stan Lee. I'm not sure, really. I'm not as experienced with Signature Series books, so maybe there's just more variability in the signature books, depending on the quality of the signature, where the signature is located. Maybe the book itself didn't present like a 9.8 anymore, so that's the one weak sale in the Silver Age, but the others look quite strong. Amazing Fantasy 15 in a 6.0 selling for $69,000, basically in line with the end of 2024's recent sales. Action Comics 252, as I mentioned, selling for $48,000. That's a big jump compared to the 2016 sale of $34,000. Though in 8 years, that's like a 50% increase. So healthy, but not too strong, not too weak, I guess I would say. So that makes healthy growth over an 8-year time frame. Amazing Spider-Man number 1 in an 8.0, selling for $45,600, and that was compared to $43,000 at the end of last year. So again, these prices are strong. They've not only held their value compared to recent sales, but have actually gone up a bit. In this particular auction, fairly strong. Daredevil number 1 had a pretty big sale, $43,000 sale, compared to $33,000 for a similar book sold just a couple of months ago. I'll just note, since we're here, that there was a Silver Surfer 9.8, a Silver Surfer number 4, 9.8. This is iconic cover art, really desirable book. A 9.8 that's not white pages. That is a turnoff for some people, but selling for $42,000. It's a big number for that one. I don't know if it's a big sale. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one while we're here too. So 9.8 there, that is a big decrease. So there was a huge sale in 2021, sort of at the peak of the comic boom, for $90,000. Now that was a 4.5 times, no, almost a 5 times, 5 times increase from the previous sale in 2019, which was $17,000. So that's a huge gap up. Right, so it's not surprising to see more copies get sold, and for those prices to come back down into a more reasonable level. At $42,000, we're still talking 3 times, 2.5 times the sale of that 2019 $17,000 sale. So still a big jump in a few years, but it's kind of finding its footing still, going from 90,000 to 66,000 to 42,000. That's taking a step down in big chunks. That one's really adjusting here as the market kind of tries to figure out what a 9.8 should be worth. So finally, we'll look at Golden Age books. That's going to be the top 5 Golden Age, and then we're going to look at some of the other sales and other breakdowns of the data in a little more detail. But as far as the top 5 lists, Golden Age books here, we've got Action Comics #1, which we saw a little bit earlier. That one was a restored book, so $384,000 there, compared to $324,000 for a 6.0 restored that sold not too long ago. Suspense Comics #3, selling for $156,000. There's really no comparison on that one. I couldn't find any sales that were in a similar grade level, so just a big sale. It's a really desirable book. Detective Comics 38 in a 7.0, first appearance of Robin. That is a $132,000 sale, which last sold in 2010 for $38,000. So a big jump there. That's been 15 years since we've seen one in that grade at least come to market. And then More Fun Comics 52 in a 6.5. That had a $108,000 sale compared to a $42,000 sale in 2013. So these Golden Age books, it's hard to get exact comparisons where you really match the exact grade in these books. You really have to go to similar grades or sales of. You have to look at sales in similar grades and try to infer what the values should be. So they're much harder to price, for Golden Age books, and harder to do direct comparisons. And Action Comics 7 was the 5th highest sale in this auction, so that sold for $75,000. And again, there's really no comparison there. That was actually a conserved book as well. So let's go ahead and look at the photos from those. All right, so Golden Age top 5. Here we have that Action Comics #1, which is a nice presenting book, but with all the restoration, it should look nice. I'm kind of coming around on restored books, especially for things that are extremely rare. I mean, Action Comics 1 is an obvious example, but other Golden Age books, if the restoration is done well and it presents well and it's still, a good example of the book, but much more affordable than a universal copy would be, I am somewhat interested in purchasing restored comics. I really don't have many in my collection, but I wouldn't be opposed to it necessarily. This one in particular has color touch, pieces added, tear seals. It's cleaned, the interior is lightened and reinforced. There are certain types of restoration that I would stay away from. I like any restoration that could potentially be reversed, even if I'm not going to go through that work to have someone reverse the restoration and try to restore it to a blue label. There's something about having restoration that's irreversible that just rubs me the wrong way. When covers have been cleaned or the interior lightened, those kind of things really turn me off. Trimming especially turns me off, but tear seals and reinforced covers, even small amounts of color touch, those kinds of things don't bother me as much. I'm more likely to be interested in buying a restored book with those kinds of repairs. Second one, we saw the Suspense Comics #3. Really striking image. This is an Alex Schomburg cover art and has all of the marquee occult Nazi symbols, bondage, beautiful women. The color palette is really striking. So there's a lot that collectors love about this book. Highly desirable, obviously, for a Golden Age book. You can tell by the price tag, it's one of maybe the top Golden Age book that a lot of people chase after. The Detective Comics 38, this first appearance by Robin. I think it was one of 2 that were sold in this auction. This was the higher graded version. This is an 8.0. Selling for $130,000. I like this cover. I think it's, when you have a first appearance of a character, having them on the cover art and prominently featured here is Robin. It makes the first appearance that much more desirable. And this one I'm not as familiar with. I mean, I'm familiar with the book and its importance as the first appearance of the Spectre, but I really don't know the character that much. $108,000 sale here. And we'll see that there were actually quite a few more fun comics in this particular auction, so we'll look at these in more detail. All right, so that concludes our top 5 list, but let's go ahead and look at the rest of the auction in a little more detail. So these are all of the sales in this Signature Series auction broken down by title. So the most sales you can see were with Detective Comics. There were 33 issues of Detective Comics sold here, 21 issues of Captain America comics, 21 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, 15 Batman, and 11 Action Comics. Then there were also 11 More Fun comics and 10 Showcase comics. So a lot of the prominent runs of the Golden Age, featured here in this Signature Series auction. Looking at the Silver Age titles that had the most sales, Amazing Spider-Man had the highest sales of all the Silver Age titles with an average of $11,000 per sale. Showcase was the next highest, and then Tales to Astonish. So these are all titles that had at least 5 different sales, in this auction, and shows the average sale per title. In the Golden Age, it's actually More Fun Comics that had the highest average selling price. So 10 sales of More Fun Comics for an average price of $17,000. That's a huge number compared to even number 2 was Action Comics and then Batman, both of those selling for a little over $7,000 per issue. Now, these are all of the Silver Age Spider-Man sales that were occurring in this particular Signature Series auction. So these are all Silver Age Spider-Man issues. Each bar represents a different issue number, and the height of the bar represents the price that was realized at auction for that book. Each bar is labeled with the grade of the issue. So, for example, issue number 2 in an 8.0 sold for a little over $10,000. Now, the most expensive books were issue number 1. There were actually 2 sales in 2 different grades. That's why there's a 2 in parentheses there instead of a grade. Those, I think it was a 7.5 and an 8.0, something like that. They sold for a little over $37,000. The other books were mostly like 8 to 9.0 copies, and you can see that the most expensive book, other than number 1, was issue 20, because there was a 9.8, which was the first appearance of the Scorpion, and that 9.8 sold for close to $30,000. Looks like around $27,000. One that stood out when we were looking at the series was Amazing Spider-Man number 20 and 9.8. So this is a big book here, although not a 9.8 white pages, off-white to white pages. And it does look like it has, some of the Newton ring type effects here in the well, which is unfortunate. As a 9.8, you really want it to present as well as possible. Doesn't damage the book, but just eye appeal is a little off with the effects of the inner well there. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but can definitely see some of the rainbow effects, here in the imaging on both sides. So that's on the right-hand side and on the left-hand side. You see more of it. But the book itself looks nice. It actually doesn't strike me as being, particularly high quality. Just the colors don't look that great, and actually this top left corner doesn't look that great either for a 9.8. So I wouldn't be all that pleased with this one. There's some discoloration or shadowing on the top edge of the book. So not my favorite if I'm going to buy a 9.8. And that's often why I don't buy 9.8s, especially in older books, because any deterioration over time, any fading, any movement in the case, anything that would potentially make it questionable whether it's a 9.8 or not, you just lose a lot of value going from a 9.8 to a 9.6. So I'd rather have a 9.0. It's not perfect, but it's going to be a high grade version of the book. And if there's any question over what grade it is, it could be a little bit better, it could be a little bit worse, but a 9.0 is roughly in the ballpark, then people aren't going to quibble with the quality or the price as much as you would with a 9.8. It's not going to be given quite the same amount of scrutiny. So I tend to avoid 9.8s in Silver Age or Golden Age books. I mean, not that you see many Golden Age books, but in Modern and Bronze Age even, Modern and Copper Age definitely I'd target 9.8s for sure. Bronze Age and earlier, it's not as important to me. And in fact, for Silver Age, like in this case, a 9.8 is almost a deterrent because I just feel like any damage that happens to it from that point forward, you're just risking losing a lot of value. Doing the same thing for More Fun Comics, we had, I think I said 10 sales of More Fun Comics, and showing those sales by issue number, by far the biggest sale was issue 52, which is the first appearance of the Spectre, selling for over $100,000. But actually, issue number 73 was the next highest sale. So that was a 5.0, selling for over $60,000, looks like around $65,000. There were issues of More Fun Comics before issue 52. Issue 20, 45, 49, and issue 50 all sold in this auction as well, but for much lower prices because that was before the Spectre was introduced into that series. So here we see the 10 items that were sold. We'll go back and see the highest value one, which is the $108,000 More Fun Comics 52. But all the earlier sales, the earliest sessions included the More Fun Comics with the Spectre. So 52, 53, 56, number 60, there's number 55. So a lot of More Fun Comics in this particular auction. And I did mention there were More Fun Comics from before the Spectre was introduced. And these are much more sort of newspaper strip, kind of cartoony comics. That was the style at the time. And so those get much lower values, but there were a few of those in this auction too. But I think that's all we have for this auction. I wanted to go over for today, all this data that I put together. We'll continue looking at Comic Link auctions as well. I think they have one going on right now. So when that concludes in a few weeks, I'll be back to do a recap of that one. And of course, we'll be back for more Heritage Signature auctions as they come up each quarter throughout the year. So thanks for watching. Go ahead and follow the channel and subscribe so you get notified of more videos. Hit the alert button so that you'll get those notifications. Share the channel with people that you think would appreciate hearing more about comic book sales, comic book data, how the market is doing. Overall, it looks like the market is holding up, at least right now. We may continue to see some deterioration in prices in 2025, but it looks like this particular auction was fairly strong. So that gives us something to hope for in 2025. And I actually plan on doing a recap video of 2024 and comparing how sales were in that year to 2023, 2022, just to see how the market's doing overall. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel and follow, and I'll see you next time.